This is, again, the annual civil rights training that we are required to provide to you. And again, by participating in this today, you are fulfilling your required training, but we do expect that you take this training back to your team members, either share this PowerPoint or share the checklist, and make sure the rest of your team members participate in this training, which is the annual requirement for everybody. The goal of this training is to discuss equal treatment for all, provide knowledge of rights and responsibilities, discuss how we can eliminate illegal barriers that we may or may not be aware of at our food distributions, promoting dignity and respect, and reviewing what it means to be part of a protected class, which include those by race, language, color, national origin, gender, disability, age, and religion. All right, so we are going to talk about some types of discrimination in this training, and just for a quick overview of a definition of discrimination is the unfair treatment of a person or group of people based on their protected class that we just talked about, and it can be intentional or unintentional through neglect. So a couple definitions. One is disparate treatment or intentional discrimination, which occurs when people make plans or rules as part of their food distributions that might intentionally treat some groups different than others based on their protected class. So an example of this could be where one religious group is denied service at a food distribution because their beliefs do not match the religious teachings of the group that is distributing the food. Another form of discrimination is disparate impact or unintentional discrimination, which could happen when a program makes a decision about how they're operating that they don't realize unfairly affects protected classes in a way that results in them receiving less. So an example of this could be that at your food distribution, you have an immigrant population that speaks a different language, and you ask them to wait until later in the day when your interpreter can join you and help them check in. What this creates potentially is a situation where there's less food that's available later on in the day during your distribution. And so that that group of people gets less food than they would have gotten if they had just been served when they got in line. And then the third type of discrimination that this training reviews is reprisal retaliation, which happens when a person or the whole organization acts so that specific individuals or groups are denied the same opportunities or benefits as others in response, in retaliation to a person's actions, comments, or behaviors. So an example of this might be, perhaps somebody complained about your program or filed a complaint, and therefore you or a member of your team kind of treats them or their family and friends differently or gives them kind of the cold shoulder. And so you are treating them differently in retaliation. All right. Eligibility requirements are not a form of discrimination. So here's an example of what's not considered discrimination. You can have a program in place that you put in place with specific rules and guidelines because, again, nobody has unlimited funds to use. So an example of this would be the CSFP program for seniors, like the Focus Hope boxes. This is a government program specifically for seniors over the age of 60. So it's not considered age discrimination because a 59-year-old can't get the food box. The rules of the program involve an age requirement. So it's not discriminating against people who are younger than the age of 60. It's just a program specifically for seniors over the age of 60 to support that population. This should go without saying. There's some obvious ways this happens and not so obvious ways. Sexual harassment is of course absolutely prohibited. So the obvious ways might be, the unwanted or unwelcome sexual favors, jokes, comments, behaviors, touching. The not so obvious ways could be, in the jokes that might come up. We certainly have clients coming out to food distributions who come out a lot, and maybe we become more familiar or friendly with them and they know us and we know them kind of thing. but that's not the across the board. So you might be joking around with somebody who gets your humor, but the other people on the fringes who don't know you don't get your humor. So just something to consider reflecting on with your team, that it's not always this overt or intentional way of making people uncomfortable, but sometimes it happens just because we get maybe overly comfortable with certain people. So a reminder to act professional for everybody while we're distributing food. Excuse me. Collection and use of data. A reminder that all records must be kept for 3 years plus the current year and kept secure and confidential. I won't linger on this because we've already reviewed the non-discrimination statement and that it needs to be present and visible. Same thing with the And Justice for All poster and hours of operation. Complaints, everybody has the right to file a complaint. If somebody's unhappy with your service or the way you're doing something, we don't have to stand in their way of them filing a complaint. The way they can do that is sometimes they might call Gleaners, or the information on the And Justice for All poster tells them where they could file a complaint online or via snail mail. So oftentimes what happens if we get a complaint into our office is we will listen to the person, listen to their complaint or their frustration. And if it's about one of your food distributions, we work to reach out to you to explain what we've heard, see if there's a misunderstanding or if there's something we can brainstorm together of how to avoid that kind of confusion. 9 times out of 10, the frustrated phone calls we might hear are food recipients who didn't understand the rules at the food distribution. Something was unclear to them, so it made it look like they were being treated unfairly or differently from other people. So 9 times out of 10, it's a communication thing or a miscommunication thing. So just something to be mindful of as you're posting your rules and sharing your distribution rules to your clients. Compliance reviews. These could occur, we come out and do site visits with you, or now more so virtual visits. MDE, which is the Michigan Department of Education, who oversees this USDA food program for our state, could come out to review your location, or even the USDA, and they can come out announced or by surprise. And typically what they're looking for is, are you storing your food properly? Are you having fair and just food distributions? Are you using the up-to-date self-declaration form we've provided you? Are you repacking food without an official clean room? Because that's a no-no for the USDA. So those are some of the things that they might look for if they happen to do a drop-in visit with you. And then reasonable accommodations of people with disabilities. So even if you do not have a handicap accessible facility, you're making the right moves to have alternative arrangements. So it could be, especially right now, you're bringing food from your building out to a car or to the person. You're allowing for proxy pickups, so you're allowing somebody's neighbor or family member to pick up for them. Or you're considering home deliveries for those folks who just cannot make it out of their home. And then you're considering other arrangements such as sign language interpreters if you have a number of people coming to you who sign, and allowing service animals at your facility for people who require service animals. We've already been through language assistance. And then a quick note on conflict resolution. So again, it's a really good best practice to make sure that you're posting your rules and your hours of operation so people are aware of how they can get food from you and what the requirements are. But we all know that conflict happens, that especially now it's a stressful time during COVID. We are all stressed out and maxed out. But even beyond that, it's stressful having to go get food from a food distribution. You don't want to be in that position. So we are going to have frustrated or angry or upset clients. Try your best to remain calm, listen to their concern, be empathetic, try to explain your rules and expectations of the food distribution, and then make sure your team members know who they can go to. I use this example all the time. Go to Anne Marie. Have somebody at your food distribution who's kind of like the person who can ease out a difficult situation. So let your team members know who they can go to in difficult situations. And then, of course, be ready to get help should the situation arise where maybe somebody becomes violent or makes threats, which could involve escalating all the way to calling the police. Heaven forbid those situations happen, but we know sometimes things could escalate that way. Customer service, treat everyone with dignity and respect, be patient and polite. Don't be afraid to apologize and explain the house rules. Ensure equal treatment in service. And no special favors. This, I know, again, we're preaching to the choir because everybody knows that a special favor is not a secret. And if you do something special for one client, everybody's going to know about it. So it's not even worth it. So be fair and appropriate to all of those you are serving. And then another quick call out to our faith-based organizations, some do's and don'ts. It is acceptable, of course, as a religious organization to have, a cross on the wall or a menorah out or, religious paraphernalia that's part of your facility there. Having religious materials available on the side, or if somebody's asking for a prayer for themselves, stepping aside to pray with them. But it would be unacceptable to require folks to pray before they get food from you. It would be unacceptable to include your religious materials in the box so people don't even have a choice about receiving it. So a couple examples, and if you need other help kind of going through what is or is not acceptable, you can always reach out to us.